What will Pragg do? We have the first move.
Okay, and it's a queen's pawn opening from Pragg. Pragg, he plays a variety of openings. Thanks to Ramesh, thanks to some of the other players he works with, he's learnt a whole bunch of openings during the lockdown over the last couple of years, and it's a queen's gambit. Queen's gambit declined. Which variation are we going to see? Is it going to be the semi-Tarash? This last move by Magnus, very solid. And will he capture with a pawn now in the centre of the board? This is so trendy, so fashionable right now. Every top grandmaster playing this line. That means Magnus wants to lock this game down to a draw.
Yeah, this is the way to try and draw, isn't it, now with black in against, well, it's one of the topical lines, as you say. Everyone's been playing it, definitely. So
against 1 e4, they have the Berlin defence, and this is basically the equivalent. So this is where we haven't gone for the most forcing line, where actually queens often get traded. Pragg trying to keep more tension in the position, which is good. I like what Pragg's doing. But, yeah, it's still been worked out very deeply, this opening. It's going to come down to who understands the position a bit more. It's actually also a transposition to the Sicilian defence with colours reversed, and my favourite variation, the C3 Sicilian. Yeah. It's basically a direct transposition, just white having an extra move compared to that.
Maybe Magnus showing a bit of respect there because he's been playing the modern Benoni yesterday. He played it in all his games, which is a much riskier opening to play. And this is like one of the most solid choices he could go for with the black pieces. And it's like, right, OK, you know, that is, I think, a sign of respect.
Mm-hmm. And actually retreating the queen is not necessarily the most popular move. And, well, Magnus replying by kicking back the bishop. And now the most popular move, according to my database, is for the black queen to take an excursion over to the left and start attacking the b-pawn.
Meanwhile, it does look like Magnus is smiling. So, well, he was at least a moment ago. I don't know whether it's the music choice, whether it's the position, whether he really likes it. But either way, I agree with you, Simon. It's definitely a mark of respect. Not fear, but respect that Magnus has chosen such a solid line. No more kind of wild, chaotic openings, provoking his opponent. And, OK, he plays maybe the most safe choice in this position, just developing black's bishop, giving Pragg the time to castle. And now both sides have mobilised their minor pieces. It's time for the rooks to join the game. Black needs to get his queen out first to connect the black rooks. And then we've entered the middle game stage, where we will see some manoeuvring. And Jovanka, the move you called there, on the board now. Often white now challenges this black queen with white's own queen. Praggnanandhaa could go and use his queen, step in front of the black queen, trade those off. But endgames, we've seen one endgame so far, and that one went in Magnus's favour. So I'm not sure queen trade will be in Pragg's plans here.
Mm-hmm. Actually, the most popular move, according to the database, this isn't the most trendy, well, not trendy, but this position hasn't actually been reached that many times. But the most popular move is actually a very sneaky pawn move. And it looks like, you know, white isn't actually defending the pawn that's under attack. But if black were to get greedy and snap the pawn, well, there would be problems ahead.
Yeah, problems ahead, Jovanka, and getting greedy here, grabbing this poisoned pawn on the b2 square would rebound immediately because white could trap the queen. You just have to be careful, right? Where you put your damsel, where you put your most valuable piece, and this queen has no escape route. It has to give itself up for just one white rook. So a small trap there in the position. The queen should not go and grab this pawn. I'm instead expecting Magnus to centralise his rooks and bring both of them towards the centre now. And there we go. He starts by mobilising his remaining pieces.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those isolated pawn positions, isn't it? I mean, this is a typical structure that you get with the one idea where white is really trying to say, I have an advantage against black's pawn in the middle of the board. That pawn can't be protected by another black pawn, and that's what white is really, you know, it's that straggler. We talked about pawn structures before, and it's Derek no mates there. But
David the d-pawn, Simon.
David the d-pawn, but David, you have mates, so I can't really say David no mates. That'd be wrong. So, but the advantage of that from black side is it does give black a space advantage. But yeah, Magnus laughing again there, isn't he? I mean, maybe he's got your podcast on. He's listening to Anisha's interview or something, you know, and he's just cracking up at it. So
that's interesting.
Potentially.
We assume the players are listening to music, but maybe they're listening to podcasts. Maybe they're listening to something else. Who knows? And
are you allowed to listen to podcasts? Because there's some chess podcasts out there.
I don't think they'd help Magnus, but I mean, it'd be a bit strange if you could listen to podcasts.
It would be a bit strange, right?
So, yeah.
Because it's there could be
Yeah, like E4, E5, you know,
I was
just
just
sort of...
thinking, move the knight.
I wonder how it works in other esports as well, what they listen to. I guess sometimes they have to listen to what's going on in their games in those esports, but chess, it's not clear what helps. We're still learning.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, some people say music, some people say actually it helps if you listen to binaural beats. There's like certain frequencies that you can listen to, helps your focus, helps your concentration, but all very new stuff. And whilst Praggnanandhaa's thinking about what to play, well, we have some selfies that I'd love to share with you. And first one is from Jonathan Elmore, who is watching us from Savannah State University. And Magnus against Pragg feels like a preview of the future, indeed. And he loves you, Simon. Loves the addition of you.
Oh, that's
we
very
also
nice.
like having you in the studio as well.
It's a good thing, otherwise I'll be in trouble.
And Jaakko Eland is watching behind his desk in, this is a tricky one, Scherpenisse. Sorry if I've kind of massacred the name, in Zeeland, the Netherlands. And nice to have you watching. And Honeybees is also watching from Orlando, Florida. And remember, we love seeing your selfies. We love seeing where you're watching from, if your pets are joining in the action.
And do we have any extreme selfies yet? This is what we're looking for yesterday.
We haven't had any extreme
What's wrong with people? Just get on your phone, you know, while you're driving your motorbike down the motorway. No, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. That was definitely, that would say what you shouldn't do. That's what I was just saying. Don't do that one. Or your car, or anything like that. But maybe a top of a mountain.
Top of a mountain would be good.
That. Under the water, you know, anything. Even in your bath. But make sure you get a good. Yeah, make sure you. Yeah, don't do that either. I don't know. Come on, guys, help me out here. You know, I'm not thinking of good ones here, am I? So,
We're learning a lot about where you watch chess, Simon.
In the bath. I love watching you guys in the bath, David. It's such a nice experience. So, right, what's happening in the game, David? Quickly, please.
We do have a few moves. That's
it's
right.
past everyone's bedtime here.
And we do have those few moves. White pushed a pawn, gaining some space on that left flank, and actually Magnus took a decision I don't really approve of. Magnus just pushing one of his own black pawns, and that has allowed Pragg time to centralise one of the white rooks. And I think I've actually reached this exact position, but with colours reversed. And that meant, that was actually from a Sicilian defence. That meant that in that position, black had the extra tempo. So I've had this position, but with black to play, basically, just with the white pieces. A bit of a inception there, a bit of a mind, a bit of a confusing thing. But yeah, in chess, sometimes you transpose to different openings just with colours reversed.
I mean, if you had to play either side, I mean, I guess in the position is kind of dynamically equal. Would you prefer to be white or black here?
Traditionally, I've always had these positions, or this type of position from the black side with the isolated pawn. But it's hard to call. The older I get, the more I enjoy playing against the isolated pawn. So how about you, Simon?
I actually... In this position, I think I prefer to be white. I mean, I like having the isolated pawn, but only when I can go for a kingside attack. And I don't generally like playing again with the isolated pawn because you always have to worry about things getting exchanged off and some ugly ending. That's just there. It's just lurking there the whole time. So I'd probably prefer to be white here. And yourself?
Yeah, me too as well. You know, like David, the older I get, the more I like to have those positional advantages. I don't like the stress involved when you know that if you trade off pieces, you might be in for a whole lot of suffering. And, well, Pragg kind of playing according to the rules. You know, he's taking some time out just to give his king a little bit of space.
Yeah, I think actually that's a very concrete move. It's designed against black advancing a pawn in front of the black king. And Magnus suddenly frowning. Magnus not liking his position too much, I think. And
He was smiling 5 seconds ago and then suddenly frowning.
Exactly.
Maybe he doesn't like the music.
Maybe it's the music, but I think it's also to do with Pragg's last move. It's a very clever one. And just to show why I'm so impressed by the maturity of the 16-year-old with this last move, if he just played the obvious move here and brought his rook to the side, then black does have ideas, for example, pushing a pawn forward, hitting white's bishop, the bishop retreats, and maybe even pushing the pawn forward again in some variations, forcing white's knight away. The knight can park itself in the centre, there would be some trades there, but for example, if it goes away from the centre of the board, then suddenly black breaks through in the centre, and isolated pawns, if you can break forward, trade things off, you kind of increase the dynamism in your position. Look at Black's rooks. They're very active as well. All of Black's pieces come to life. But with this last move, Pragg, he's thinking about the opponent's plan, pushing his pawn forward. Now, this doesn't work at all for Black. This is only weakening the Black king, because suddenly this pawn push is just met by a capture. So Pragg just looking into the future, thinking about what Magnus wants, and he stopped it. And I really love this move. Also, the white king now with some breathing space. Great move there by Pragg.
And Magnus, he has gone into a little bit of a pause. We did see a smile on Magnus's face in this game now. Sverre, and what would you say is the mood both for the world champion and all the players today so far?
I'm actually fascinated on the side here because I'm watching Trent on the side trying to put up the position on the board that's here, and he's trying to give Johann Sebastian next to me his opinions on things. And what are you thinking right now?
Just saying, this position is a reversed Alapin, a reversed C3 Sicilian, and this is a line I used to play all the time as a kid. And Johann Sebastian was like, "No, it's not." And I was like, "You just did a course on the Alapin, didn't you? This is like your opening." But I think it is. I mean, we could get the same position, very similar, with colors reversed. Which, if that means it's probably very decent for white, you would expect, with an extra move, basically. So. Yeah, I know that's a bit technical, but yeah.
That's Lauren's take. What's your take on Magnus's position? Is he in solid shape?
I think his position is pretty solid, but as Lauren says, it's slightly better for Praggnanandhaa, and he's not really risking too much.
You're also following Jordan's game pretty closely here, but that's been quite explosive so far, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, we were actually a bit inspired by Lawrence publishing his course on the move one knight c3 today, so we discussed it for like 5-10 minutes.
That's on Chessable, right?
That's on Chessable, yes. Very good course. People should check it out. And we just thought, okay, let's have fun, play it. It's a very aggressive move, and he got a very interesting position, very original position, which I've never seen something like this, and it's even hard to say who's better, but it's a lot of things happening, so it can go either way.
That's just our take, just a little hint of a secondary game that you may keep an extra eye on. But for now, it's interesting to see if Magnus can hold this.
Definitely. Thank you, Sverre. And yeah, let's just take a peek at the second game between Jordan van Foreest and Anish Giri, his second, Johann Sebastian, revealing that there's been some preparation for this game with the c3 opening.
Wow, knight to c3, that's right. And I don't know what Lawrence has paid Jordan to play that move, one knight c3, but it's a great advert for Lawrence's course, and he's got a great position as well. Jordan, you see the body language there. Jordan and Anish both focused. It's really dynamic, really tense battle there. You can see the evaluation bar and their match down at the bottom there, roughly balanced, but. Yeah, it shows there is room for creativity in the opening.
Whenever Lawrence comes out of a course, it does take the chess world by storm. You know, one knight c3, his chessable course is out today, and
today it's launched today on Chessable.
Yeah, and if you want kind of a maverick opening to play, he knows his stuff incredibly well, so it's well worth checking out. But yeah, it's quite funny to see. He brings the course out, and all the top players are, it's another Lawrence Trent course. We've got to play that move. So yeah, interesting.
And we also have the Simon Williams Chessable course on how to play like Tal, basically.
Yeah, it's the life and times of Mikhail Tal. So it's a famous book written by him. A very funny book, actually. It's all about his thoughts, and I've tried to bring his...
Was he a funny guy?
He was a funny guy, yeah. He was a really unique character. He was like, yeah, one-of-a-kind kind of guy, and very, very brilliant book. And I've just try to bring some of the games into videos, so I've done the videos for that, and there's 15 hours of me chatting about his play. So yeah, very enjoyable.
It will be very entertaining. Can't wait to see it.
Absolutely.
And meanwhile, White has moved the rook and aligned it to look at the black queen. And whilst Magnus ponders over what to do next, well, it gives me excellent opportunity to share with you some more selfies. Ooh. We do love getting them. And Brian H. Live is watching Magnus Carlsen with none other than the future queen of chess, Adeline Rose. 1 year old.
Cute.
That's very, very cute. And looky here, someone is playing hooky from work to catch great chess instead. Take a look at that. Sverre and Eric getting in on the action. Love that. Love it indeed.
How cool is that? During the chess tournament, Sverre is able to take a selfie with one of the great players.
I know.
Very cool.
And Magnus moves his queen. And Mehdi Hassan is actually doing science whilst watching thrilling chess. I do quite like the multitasking tweets. And if you two want to share with us your selfies and also get in on Simon's challenge of extreme selfie with watching the show, like where are you, the most extreme place that you can watch the show from, then tweet us using the hashtag ChessJamps and we will feature them. It will make Simon very, very happy.
Yeah, we haven't had any extreme selfies yet. I hope no one gets in trouble doing this.
People are so safe.
Sorry?
People are very safe.
They're very safe, yeah.
watching chess.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Which is good. Stay safe,
Stay
obviously.
safe.
Yeah.
But kind of stay safe.
Yeah.
We still want to see it on a mountain or something, I think. So, yeah.
All right. Well, on this game, David, are the kings safe? Are the queens safe? What's happening?
Everything's pretty safe right now, and that's good for Magnus Carlsen. Maybe the only thing that isn't safe is the clock time for him, 8.5 minutes against Praggnanandhaa's 11.5 minutes. But it's up to Praggnanandhaa now to make things unsafe, to maybe start taking some creative decisions, start kind of increasing the pace, changing the pace at least. First, I'm expecting White to get a bit more organised. There are some threats brewing against the White Queen, potentially. The Black Light Squared Bishop might step forward to attack her. So I'm expecting the White Queen to maybe take a step back in one direction. There are several options for Pragg, but good opening foundation. I'm inclined to agree with Johann Sebastian Christensen, who we had to chat with there in the lounge. I think White does have a small advantage, but to press that further is the difficult part. So everything very safe and solid, but Pragg needs to win. And that's why he's focusing so hard right now, just looking away from the board there, maybe trying to come up with some creativity and then looking back.
I have a question for you, David, because suddenly it just dawned on me. The queen and the bishop, they're aligned to look at the h3 pawn. Danger? Any danger at all? No. Not yet.
As you mentioned, Jovanka, this is quite a common motif, a common kind of pattern that you have to look out for, a bishop and a queen lining up against a pawn. So, for example, the move, or one of the moves I was looking at, dropping the queen back, this could be the trigger for an attack by black, sacrificing a piece. And as you mentioned, this could be very, very effective in some scenarios. But here, I think White just has too many defenders. The knight is a great defender, most of all, the bishop defender. So, for example, the bishop might step back, and next move, the White bishop will evict the Black queen. So, it looks scary. If Black gets maybe another knight or another bishop into the attack, one or two more moves, then definitely something to consider, but not right now, unfortunately.
Pipe dream for the time being.
Got to watch out for it, though. It's always the kind of move that, you need to keep an eye on. I think you need to show patience in this position in general, because as soon as someone strikes, it could well be premature and the position could go wrong. So I think it's just, as you say, David, Pragg trying to work out where his queen is best placed, where his pieces are best placed, and keep that pressure up against Black's weak pawn in the middle of the board. I like the position he's got. I think this is, you've got an advantage with the white pieces. That's all you can ask for when you're playing the world champion. And as you say, he really needs to win this game, so he needs to keep the pressure on. So, but at the moment, he's done everything that he's needed to do.
And just to explain, the reason I like this move, dropping the queen back, it looks a bit mysterious, but that's because I want to support this pawn pushing forward, maybe, the queen a decent square here. Also, I want to bring the knight to the edge of the board, and the knight can't go to the edge of the board now because it's actually on a loose square, and this would actually lose a pawn after knight takes pawn. Attacking the white queen, Black's queen could pounce. So I want to prepare all of these ideas, but Pragg, he's burning a lot of time, 4 minutes now, and he needs to prepare all of these ideas, maybe take a timeout or two. He needs to stay flexible, but it looks like he's looking for something right now. This is not the type of position to spend a third of your time on. Yeah. He spent 4 minutes out of 12 that he had, and okay, he actually plays the move that I was recommending. The reason I recommend this is because it's very typical from the position with colours reversed that Lawrence was mentioning there, and Black does the same. The queens were really uncomfortable because the rooks are also on the same lines as them, so both queens now have kind of run away to safe squares, and it might be time for those types of ideas from Pragg. Push a pawn forward, bring a knight forward, and he needs to play quickly, energetically right now. Still very tense in the balance, despite the evaluation bar liking white. He needs something right now.
Interesting. Praggnanandhaa, he only has 2 games with the white pieces. This is one of them, and he has to make a comeback after losing the first game in the tournament for him. The first game today against Magnus. And if Magnus wins today's match, then these 2 will actually be in shared lead, both of them, with 9 points. And that's going to give us a very intriguing end to the tournament. There is a total of 7 days. 7 rounds. It's a round robin, so all play all in these matches with 4 rapid games in each match. Praggnanandhaa currently in sole lead, but Magnus is chasing him from behind.
That's actually a good point, Kaya. Imagine if Pragg somehow wins one of the next few games. Imagine if it's 2-2, if it goes to playoffs. Pragg still gets 1 point from that, so he'll still have a big lead over Magnus.
True.
Or decently going ahead of Magnus going into the last few games. So, yeah, I think Magnus needs to win this one in the rapid section just to catch Pragg, and otherwise Pragg will be the big favourite for the rest of the tournament.
Oh, wow. I mean, we talked about him as an outsider. We were so excited to have him here, but actually as a winner of the tournament, that didn't seem very realistic, right? Or did it? You did mention him.
I did mention him at the beginning, but
true.
more in hope than expectation.
Yeah.
I mean, winning this tournament would send shockwaves around the world, Pragg. We'd probably get another tweet from the Indian Prime Minister there because it would be that big an achievement. But OK, long way to go. Don't want to put too much pressure on him. But the way he's played so far, Pragg, wouldn't be that much of a surprise anymore.
Do you guys remember sort of the first time Magnus sent shockwaves in the chess world? How old was he? Did he win something, win a tournament? He did play a game against Kasparov, right?
Yeah, there's this one tournament. Was it in Reykjavik in 2004? I think he was 13 years old.
I played him there, actually. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I played him only in the Blitz, but I played him in Reykjavik, and he was, obviously very small, and he was just this young kid who was playing fantastic chess. I don't think he won the tournament. I think it might have been that year, very close to there, but I played him in the Blitz tournament afterwards, and he took my king in the Blitz tournament. I was actually winning, and we got down to a time scramble, and he captured my king. So even though he's a real talent, he clearly didn't know the rules of chess. You can't take the king.
You can't take the king. It's
I know.
a legal move. Did you say that?
Well, actually, he won the game because I didn't really know what was going on. I mean, he'd taken my king. What's going on? But actually, I could have claimed the win because it's an illegal move to take the king. But in a Blitz game, it's very hectic and frantic, so you don't know what's happening.
Wait, so why did he do it? Because he was just confused?
Well, I put my king in check, which probably wasn't a very good idea. It sounds like we're both complete beginners, doesn't it? I put my king in check, Magnus took my king, I didn't know what was going on, and he won. I mean, but it was, in Blitz chess, everything is so quick and fast. It's really, really confusing and hard to know what's going on. But, I mean, that's when I sort of noticed him, but... He was very talented. It was something innate that made him so great, as well as his hard work as well.
And there was the Mozart of chess comments. Was that Tata Steel?
That was, I think he won a game against Sipke Ernst, Dutch grandmaster, and it was an incredible game. And that's when the kind of nicknames, the kind of labels started coming. But he was already a grandmaster then at a young age, and similar trajectory to Pragg. Actually, got 2600 very quickly, and then just kind of took it by storm. He never really plateaued Magnus. A lot of players, they get good and then they stop, but not for Magnus and clearly not for Pragg. And
I really like...
few moves.
Sorry to interrupt, Dave. I mean, I really like the way this is going for Pragg. I mean, he's made some space. Look at that knight he's got in the middle.
Me too.
Yeah.
And this white knight that has just moved, it's the ideal piece. The reason you like it so much, Simon, is because if your opponent has an isolated pawn, knights are the best blockaders. If you plant your knight in front of your opponent's isolated pawns, they can never, ever be moved. So, white with the best pieces right now, slightly superior pawn structure. Still some work to be done because white's pawns on the left side of the board now, slightly loose. They're very far advanced, but they could become targets. Black's dark square bishop maybe having some inroads into that side of the board. So you have to still be careful, but definitely turning in Pragg's favour at the moment.
Looks like that. And I'm going to take this brief pause just to kind of say, Simon, you set a challenge, Could people take selfies in exotic locations? Our Twitter audience says most certainly they are up for it. And TT African Vibes is watching by the fireside in Paris, South Africa. That's quite cool.
Awesome.
Milan Rakic actually says, challenge accepted, Simon. Ironing while watching chess.
Ironing?
Extreme ironing. Have you never heard of that? They go onto mountains and stuff. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, also
Wasn't
bathroom.
quite what I was thinking, but like, you know.
And Samuel Mendowitz says that this one's for you, Ginger GM. It's not a bathtub, but I think it will work. He's actually in it looks like the Arizona mountains.
Wow.
That's incredible, yeah.
That's a cool place, yeah.
Yes,
That is very cool. So
Out in the wilderness.
keep those selfies coming.
Absolutely. And keep those moves coming. What's happening on the board, David?
Yeah, keep those moves coming indeed. Pragg is trying to up the pressure. He's putting a lot of... well, he's actually creating a threat right now. If you look at Black's light squared bishop, it's under fire from White's bishop that's just moved and White's knight in the centre of the board. Oh, Pragg really... He's trying to move into the kill. He's slowly gravitating the play towards the Black king. For example, if we see a capture of this White bishop that's just moved, White's knight will replace it. And we know about knights on f5. They do thrive. So... looking very good for Pragg right now. I think Magnus needs to be very accurate just to hold the balance. I'm expecting... I don't think a trade is really possible here. You can't let White's knight anywhere near your king. So I'm expecting maybe Magnus to just defend that bishop with his queen.
The only downside is, I was thinking, Dave, is something you mentioned, that White has advanced his pawns. On the surface, I thought, oh, that looks good for White. But it's really worth remembering that when you make pawn moves, you can't move them backwards. And that might sound obvious, but you create a lot of weaknesses in your position. And there's a couple of squares now on White's queen side that are incredibly weak, that can never be covered. And David pointing out there, that Black knight has a beautiful square it can just sit on, and it can never be kicked away by a White pawn because they've gone too far up the board. So this is, I think, what Pragg's doing. It does make sense, but it will give Magnus counterplay on the queen side here. So it could be a race. Pragg going for Black's king, and then Magnus trying to find some weaknesses on the queen side. So very excitingly set up at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Simon. I mean, we're going to see a tremendous battle, actually, between those long-term advantages that Magnus has and the dynamic possibility, especially the kingside attack that you referenced. Because jumping in with the knight looks good, but also comes with certain consequences too.
Yeah, so right now, Magnus, he's the one facing the first real threat of the game. He has to do something about Black's light squared bishop. I don't think he should move it or trade it off. Oh, OK, he does move it. He does retreat it. Somehow it feels like that's a step in the wrong direction to me. I thought maybe he would protect it with the Black queen.
Yeah, look at the bar.
Yeah. I mean, I completely understand why he did this. It looks like he's keeping the bishop nice and safe on a protected square. That bishop's actually protected 4 times right now. But it doesn't stop White's plan of maybe trading off those bishops and replacing White's light squared bishop with a knight on that same square. The f5 square could be the key launch pad for a big attack.
Is it actually possible for White to try to get greedy, you know, and play it on both sides of the board, step back with the knight, and start attacking a pawn at the edge of the board? It doesn't look like the most attractive. Oh, we see a trade.
Yeah, and this is the move I was expecting, because now White's knight can occupy that dream f5 square. So is he going to do it now? If you don't, you might miss your opportunity, right?
Yeah, you go forward.
Irresistible, that move.
Yeah.
And if you can get the other knight around, I mean, that might mean giving up your queen side, but I'd love to play the move you recommended there, David, but then get all your pieces towards Black's king. I mean, it's one-way traffic. You've got to go for the win. Just get all those minor pieces, meaning the knights and the bishops, just heading towards Black's king. Because Black has moved a pawn in front of his king, which, again, we've noticed these small moves, but we might be able to highlight that pawn, and it's kind of like a hook.
And
you
it's on
see
F5.
it is on F5, and that is now hitting that hook as well, which you might be able to, at some point, start a sacrifice on. So aggressive play from Pragg.
Very
Cool.
aggressive. It's all about this knight right now, putting pressure on this bishop. If this bishop ever moves, then suddenly the White bishop can capture the Black knight safely and completely wreck the Black pawn structure. A lot of pressure right now. It's all about this knight putting pressure on the bishop, as Simon says, maybe sacrificing itself on this square to open up the Black king, maybe even sacrificing itself on this square. And the key is whether you can bring this knight into the attack, as Simon also mentioned there, maybe bringing it back this way towards the Black king. It takes a while. Also a big weakness still in the middle of the board, this isolated pawn. Magnus, though, to be fair to him, does have chances. It's against these weak White pawns later in the game. And maybe he'll try and stack up the 2 Black rooks to create some counter threats along this line. First, he retreats his bishop. I mentioned that retreating the other way was bad, but at least here he still defends his knight. So it's holding together for now for Magnus, but it's all about this knight. It looks very, very scary. And this knight could be the key piece in this attack.
Okay. Praggnanandhaa is thinking, let's just check in with the other matches going on as well, because look at the bar in the game between Liam Le and Erik Hansen. It's shot up for Liam Le. The first game ended in a draw, but maybe Liam Le is about to take the first point in that matchup. Erik Hansen struggling. He did win his match yesterday, so he is feeling confident, but maybe in trouble right now. In Mamedyarov against Duda. Duda won the first game. He's in the lead. The bar slightly in the middle in the second game against Mamedyarov. And then the all-Dutch encounter. Jordan van Foreest with a C3 opening against Anish Giri. The bar is swinging from side to side, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that one. And we do have another move in the big one.
And Simon, you must be loving this last move.
It's the first move I thought of.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to get all my pieces towards Black's king. I love the swinger, the swinging rook, which we talked about a lot, haven't we, in the past? But it does have downsides as well, David.
Yeah, this rook move looks really nice, really pretty. Planting the rook on an outpost and trying to, as you mentioned, Simon, swing it across to the Black king. We call this a rook lift. You lift it up the board and then you lift it across towards your targets. Here the target is the Black king, but it's not easy to bring this rook across yet. Any square this white rook wants to use is actually covered by Black's knight. That Black knight is a great defender. And the downsides you mentioned there, Simon, you do lose a bit of coordination. Suddenly, white is focusing all his attention over on this king side, but he's kind of neglecting the other half of the board. It's a bit loose, especially white's knight on this left half now. It does feel like, I don't know, he's losing a bit of control. He's going for the attack, but sacrificing some stuff.
It's kind of all in, isn't it, this move, because you're giving up your hopes on the other side of the board, so you've got to really go for it now. It is that other knight. If you can get that other knight and just plonk it to attack the Black queen, fantastic. But you can't. I mean, Magnus has this counterplay on the queen side. I mean, I still think it's a fascinating position. I know the bar is saying what 0.0. I mean, it's certainly not a draw, and he's going for it. I mean, this is really brave stuff.
And this, you need to be brave, you need courage. That's the only way you'll get rewarded against Magnus Carlsen. It might not be objectively correct. We see the evaluation bar now going in Black's side. White's attack might not work, but Magnus, the only Achilles heel he has is sometimes he neglects his king safety. Sometimes he has been checkmated in the tour by Daniel Dubov, Wesley So, a couple of others. You can't really outplay him in many endgames. It's not possible there. So you have to go for the attack. So in a way, I like Prag's philosophy behind what he's doing, but it does feel loose. And Magnus is about to stack up his two rooks, as mentioned, on the c-file to attack white's knight over there. And there we go. He's played it. The two Black rooks creating big, big threats now.
They look good. And remember, this is the big one today, the match up on the podium. But if you are following us on Twitch, you can use the command center to have all the games, or as many games as you want, and follow all the chess moves if you want to. So Chess24 on Twitch if you want to use the command center. Wow, bunch of moves.
Yeah, a bunch of moves and a rook trade. I think that's good for Pragg short term because he's released some of the pressure. The two Black rooks were just too strong. But long term, if white's attack doesn't work, then white is just saddled with weaknesses that Simon mentioned earlier, especially that Black knight on the b6 square. It might be ready to grab a pawn later on. Or at least jump into the white position. And what do you think of this transition, this exchange?
I really don't like what Pragg has done. I know I admire the spirit behind it, but to me it looked a little bit clunky and a little bit kind of one-sided.
Superficial, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm just looking at this position and I'm just thinking the white rook can actually maybe even be caught out, you know, be stuck there on this awkward-looking square. And Black's rook and knight are such effective pieces. I love Magnus's position.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, it feels like white's been generating some threats, some attacks, but Magnus just stone cold, no nerves, just making really nice defensive moves.
I mean, saying that, the knight that's just highlighted and moved, if you can move that, OK, this is why Magnus had to play something that Jovanka just mentioned and go for the offensive, because that white knight is two squares from an ideal situation. I mean, I'm a bit more optimistic about what Pragg's done. I'm always optimistic when I see a king and people start attacking the king, but I think this is a great way to try to take down the world champion. You've got to take some risks and you've got to go for it. So, you know, it does look a bit strange, but White's pieces are quite scary as well.
Oh,
Wow.
wait 1 second. Isn't there
Okay, he's made
knight
bishop
takes rook?
Yeah, I was expecting the white rook
And
to
now
move.
there's a big threat. Rook takes knight.
Oh, look at the bar. Oh, no. Is it a blunder by Pragg? Look at him.
It's a big blunder by Pragg, unfortunately, and he's just missed that black can actually sacrifice a queen on the next turn. He thought that the white knight could come and check the black king, but it doesn't work, and we'll have to show that in a moment. But Pragg, first of all, it's heartbreak for him. Big, big blunder there. He actually had a very good move. The white rook could have just moved out of the attack, moved out of the threat, and the game goes on. Pragg would have had decent chances, but Magnus there, he knows he's winning now. The white knight forced to retreat to attack black's queen, but that's not what Pragg wanted. Head in his hands. He's just lost a rook for only one piece. Material advantage now decisive in black's favour. And just while we keep an eye on Pragg, we have to show what just happened. It was a huge mistake here. The black knight attacking the white rook, and he just should have moved it. He should have moved his rook to the side, lined it up with the black king, and he's fine. The game continues. But instead, bishop takes bishop. He had forgotten that after knight takes rook, he couldn't give a check with the white knight. It looks like white is winning, but suddenly black can actually strike back. Queen takes knight, sacrificing the black queen. And after white takes, white is a whole queen up for just a rook. But this is the killer blow. Rook takes knight, check. This is why we always got to look for checks. This check lures the white queen onto a bad square, and suddenly another check, a knight fork. And at the very end, after the white king moves, black emerges with an extra piece. Two knights beat one bishop easily. So that's what Pragg missed. And right now he's stuck in a difficult situation. Material down and struggling. Let's go back to the players. It's, yeah, desperate times. Maybe some tricks still.
Okay, so he's not like 100% losing.
99.9999999999999.
It's going to be so much fun if he doesn't lose now.
It's being realistic, you know. So.
Yeah, I see a few very strong moves for black here.
Yeah, I mean you can
Offer a queen trade.
Yeah, just move the queen 2 square forwards, try to get the queens off, and then white's knight. I mean, you're threatening checkmate with that move as well. You know, Magnus is really showing his class, isn't he? I mean, you know, kind of expected he might do today, but hopefully
for the big occasions.
he plays well on the big occasions. That's why he's the boss. Yeah,
It's that experience. I mean, you don't win 5 World Championship matches without having nerves of steel. And Simon's move there, offering a queen trade and also threatening checkmate. The queens have to come off the board. And here we go. It's actually still a rook for a bishop, advantage for black. But more importantly, white's pieces were attacked. And there we go. Just a trade of knights there. And when the black knight moves out of the way, it's just an endgame where black has extra material and a matter of technique, as we call it. The black knight retreating out of the threat, attacking white's bishop, and now the black rook's going to go and grab some pawns. The white bishop not able to fight against black's rook.
Yeah, and somehow, you know, it was a very unfortunate mistake from Praggnanandhaa. You know, when he blundered, everything fell, and all his pieces were on the wrong squares. Oh, so unfortunate.
Yeah, sometimes you blunder and you get a bit lucky, you can still fight and it's still really complicated, but at the very end there, as you mentioned, this queen trade, making it really simple for Magnus. And Praggnanandhaa, he realised immediately, we saw on his camera, as soon as Magnus replied, he just leant back in his chair. That's how it works.
It's often the way, isn't it? I mean, often when you blunder, it's when you let go of the mouse or you let go of the piece, you suddenly realise immediately what you've done, and it's very strange how quickly you can realise it's a serious blunder when you do it. I think I you know, don't know why that is always, but
and it's so strange, you know, when you're like, well, brain, if you could work 1 second later, why could you not work
exactly
before?
why now? You know, it's like you're letting me down again. So, but this is pretty. The rook is so strong here. You know, it's a rook in an ending, incredibly good piece, and it can start picking off the white pawn. So it's not much that can be done here.
Yeah, and Magnus there, he clicked on one pawn, he changed his mind, he clicked on another pawn, he changed his mind, but he does have many very strong moves here for black. That is the reason. And we should mention, we have seen Pragg turn things around. Already in his 3 match wins in previous days, he was losing games in all of those 3 days, but he managed to win them in the end. The problem is this is not that type of position where you can confuse your opponent, really. Here, he's dependent on a mouse slip or blunder, really, from Magnus Carlsen.
And less than a minute on the clock now for Praggnanandhaa. If he loses this game, then Magnus will only need a draw in game 3 with the white pieces to take the win in the match. It's getting quite dramatic now for Pragg.
And I think we're going to see a result any moment. This last move is really nice. Look at the white bishop. It lacks escape squares. Black has a huge threat of just retreating the black rook up to the top of the board, and white's bishop is caught behind enemy lines.
If your phone goes off, do you still lose in the esports arena? Because obviously if you're playing chess over the board and your phone goes off,
then you immediately lose.
You immediately lose. OK,
And
the
we
game's
have a
over.
result.
Yeah.
It's over. Magnus Carlsen winning game 2 as well. He is up by 2 points.